I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello, how you doing? Hope you're really well. Hope you've had a good week. I've had a busy old week. My eldest son, he turned 18 yesterday. I honestly can't believe that he is now officially an adult and really can do what he likes now. It's quite amazing, isn't it, how quickly they grow up. I mean, it's so funny. I remember when him and his brother, who's only 18 months younger than him, were in a buggy. And I remember one lady in the street, I remember it so vividly, said to me, "Oh, look at them now, enjoy it. They'll grow up one day." And I remember just thinking at the time, oh my God, I can't wait. This is so difficult. I don't get a moment to myself. I can't even go for a wee without somebody following me. And here I am with a grown-up 18-year-old. It's completely bonkers. Anyway, this weekend I also ran the furthest I have ever run. Now, as you probably know, because I've been banging on about it a lot, I'm running the Brighton Marathon at the beginning of April. And at the weekend, I ran 18 miles. I honestly can't believe I did it. I have been finding the training really, really hard, if I'm honest. My husband's doing it as well. And we've ended up having to separate our training now because he's just too fast. He runs too fast and I'm a plodder. Having said that, well, a few weeks ago, I was really struggling. I was wondering if I was ever going to be able to do it. But the run I did at the weekend, it wasn't easy. But although it was the furthest I've ever run, it didn't feel as bad as some of the shorter runs I've done. So I'm really hoping that means the training is beginning to work. And for the first time in the whole of this sort of training process, I can now begin to feel that the 26 miles is actually possible. So if you are working towards a goal and you are beginning to think, oh my God, can I ever do it? Will it ever happen? Stick in there, because we just got to keep chipping away, taking those small steps, and it will happen. You will achieve that goal. Okay, before I tell you about this week's podcast episode, just to remind you, last week's episode was all about finding out and rediscovering what your values are, because they will have changed as you've gone through life. And knowing our values, I think, is just so fundamental in terms of knowing ourselves and knowing what we like to do, knowing how we want to spend our time. And once you've got that, it's almost like you've got a roadmap for the way ahead, and it helps you make decisions. It helps you say no to stuff. So it helps you with your boundaries as well. Okay, on to this week's episode. So this week we are talking all about EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, otherwise known as tapping. Now, I wanted to do this episode because I am a trained EFT practitioner, and I've shared some of tapping on my Instagram. And from that, I've had quite a few of you request an episode all about EFT and find out a little bit about it and how it can help you, particularly during perimenopause and menopause. Now, I came to tapping because I experienced tapping through a coach I worked with. And I have to say, I can't really pinpoint exactly what it was it helped me with, but after the session, I felt so much lighter and something had really shifted. And when you listen to this episode, you'll hear that tapping is all about moving stagnant energy through your body. And that definitely happened with me. Anyway, it sparked my curiosity. So I signed up and I did a course, a 5-day course here in Brighton. And it was really quite fascinating. I absolutely loved it. And one thing which came out of that course was that I haven't blushed since. So I used to go red so often as a child. It was a real affliction. And it followed me into my adult life, although it wasn't as bad, but certain occasions when I had no control of it, I would still go bright red. Do you know, it always happened when I was a teacher. We were in a staff meeting, and if the head teacher talked to me or I said something out loud, for some reason I would always go bright red. I was always really worried it's because he thought I fancied him, but I didn't. Anyway, I did, in the training, I worked with somebody, and one of the things I wanted to work on was to see if I could get on top of this blushing and hopefully never blush again. And do you know what? That was over a year ago now, and I haven't blushed since. So rather than me just talking about it this week, I invited fellow EFT practitioner Sarah Tobin on the podcast to discuss all things EFT and tapping. Now, Sarah's actually much more experienced in this than me. So she found emotional freedom technique back in 2014 after very, very sadly suffering from severe PTSD following the loss of her first baby. She found EFT so life-changing at this time that she continued using it on her own for the next 3 years before completing her EFT training so that she could share this really effective technique with as many people as possible. She's now been tapping for about 7.5 years. And then in January 2022, Sarah qualified as an EFT trainer. So now she has trained groups of people in both Ireland and the UK to become EFT practitioners. I really loved this conversation with Sarah. We just geeked out on tapping. We talk about how it can be really effective, particularly during perimenopause. So keep listening for that, because we do a sort of a general talk about tapping at the beginning, but then we kind of get more into the specifics of how it can help. So without further ado, please welcome the absolutely gorgeous Sarah Tobin. Sarah, hello. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Polly.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation today, because I'm a trained EFT practitioner, and I think trained with the same person, with Carl Dawson.
Yeah.
You're a trained EFT practitioner, but also now you train EFT practitioners. So
Yeah.
I see you in my eyes as the guru, as a much more experienced EFT practitioner. So it's going to be really nice to talk all things EFT and tapping today with somebody else rather than me just talking about it on my own. So
yeah, well, thank you.
I know that tapping came to you at a very sad and a very difficult time in your life. And I wonder if you would be happy if you could share with us how you found tapping and why you then wanted to then go on and train to be a practitioner and then to train practitioners.
Yeah, of course. Happy to share. For someone who's quite, holistic and is into all alternative therapies, EFT just was never on my radar, actually. It wasn't something that I always knew was there. It came in quite suddenly as an option for support, which I'm obviously very grateful for. So the story, I suppose, is that we lost our firstborn child, a daughter. We had Alice in November 2014. And it was post-birth. So during the final stages of labor, she didn't get enough oxygen. It wasn't really identified early enough. And therefore, she was born kind of pretty lifeless without being able to breathe. And she was put on life support for 5 days. And then we had to take her off life support. So as you can imagine, it's kind of one of those very, very shocking, very traumatic, very tragic, heartbreaking experiences that, thankfully, a lot of people don't have to go through. And it was out of the blue. It was a very, everything prior to that in the pregnancy had gone perfectly. So it was really, really dramatically shocking. And I felt that in my body, it was, my heart broke. The term heartbreak, I don't know. never really understood it. And I think people who've experienced it will understand what I mean by that, because when you actually do feel it, it is like there's a knife permanently wedged in the center of the heart. It is like heartbreak, that the heart has broken open, and then it's very painful. Um, and so experienced that, a lot of shock, a lot of disassociation. I wasn't the type of person at that time who was connected with my body very well or very much. I probably had about 3 words to describe how I was feeling. A bit like a lot of people, was caught into kind of the corporate world rat race. And so, yes, I'd done Reiki in my early 20s, but that world had kind of bypassed me. So this was a very, very kind of shocking situation that made me look at life and myself in a very different way. After it happened, I was thinking, how could I just go back to my day job, working in the marketing department, managing international media budgets or whatever. Like that has no meaning for me now. So very early on, I knew there has to be something more fulfilling. It just made me question everything. And so I kind of went back to that job after about 3 months, because I needed to find a new normal again. I was wallowing and depressed at home, and I just needed something to kind of move me forward. So I went back, but I knew that it was a plan B, and that plan A was coming. I had just this sense that there's something else I need to do, because how can life just move on after this experience? So it was very, very fortunate that we got pregnant again about 5 months after we lost Alice. So that brought a lot of relief in terms of life moving forward. But then it also then brought a lot of anxiety about, oh my God, I've got to get through 12 weeks. Oh my God, I've got to get through 20 weeks. And then I've got to have a baby and I've got to give birth. And the anxiety was just starting to really ramp up. And it was years later that I spoke to a psychologist, and he said that basically I had kind of undiagnosed severe PTSD. And I didn't go to the GP. I was having flashbacks in work. I, lost a lot of motivation, was quite depressed. I was drinking a lot. All these kind of symptoms of PTSD, but never occurred to me to go to the doctor for it. Like, I don't know why. One day I was talking to my sister who was in Ireland at the time, and I must have mentioned flashbacks to her, because she's like, oh, I went to see an EFT therapist because she had a car crash and was getting flashbacks. And I was like, what's EFT? And then she explained a little bit about it and how it had helped her. And I was like, and I don't know why we'd never had that conversation before. It was like brand new information to me. And perhaps we had discussed it, but in the context of how I was now feeling, it was like a light bulb moment, I went onto Google, found a lovely Kate Marilat, who is a Brighton and Hove based practitioner, and I booked in for 6 sessions. And that first session was just transformative in so many ways, that I just knew I started to feel better, like dramatically. And I knew that there was something big in this. It was like, how can tapping on your body, like literally physically putting your hand to points on your body, help me through something so tragic and traumatic. So I suppose, banking all these little seeds of thoughts deep down, making their way into little shoots of growth. And I went on to have Casper by planned C-section, which was really good. The post side of it wasn't fantastic, and actually it was quite triggering, because I hadn't foreseen that bringing a baby home would be triggering. When I didn't bring a baby home from the hospital the previous time. So there was a lot of things that I had to kind of look at after the birth as well. And then things got easier, but obviously I was still caught up in a lot of postpartum, maybe depression, but just trying to move forward, I suppose, and not really giving myself a lot of attention or credit. And I wasn't using tapping on my own at that point. I neglected myself. You know, those early days of motherhood, everything I had done went out the window. And yeah, I probably suffered for that, to be honest. And then it must have been over a period of time when I started to read books about tapping. I started to Google tapping for mums because I wanted videos on YouTube that I could follow that were related to mums and what I was going through, and couldn't find any. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I don't know where it came from. I just decided I'm going to train in this. And I'm going to work with moms. And it was like it just landed one day, you know. And I was pregnant at the time then with my third child, and I really wanted to have a natural birth. And so having a VBAC after cesarean, obviously there's concerns from the hospitals, etc. And but I really, really wanted it. And so I went back to Kate, back for a couple more sessions, and did the work on preparing myself for that birth. I was guinea pigging myself for the techniques that I wanted to train in, because I knew at that point I was going to train. And then, yes, when he was 5 months old, so he was born exactly as planned with Kate, as per visualization. It was amazing. It was beautiful, and it was full circle and very healing. And I feel very lucky to have had that, because I know a lot of people have traumatic births and then don't have that nice one at the end to wrap it all up. You know, it's not, it is a nice story. And it was something I was very, very grateful for. And then I trained in EFT when he was 5 months old. And then I went on to do the matrix reimprinting that same week. So I did the EFT just like you and the matrix. And then a few months after that, in the September, I trained with Sharon King and I did birth matrix reimprinting. Because of what I'd been through, I wanted to be able to support women who'd had birth trauma as well as loss, etc. So I did that training with her. So yeah, that was kind of, you know, the journey. That was 2018. And then straight away, I started working with people. I just had the intention, I had the enthusiasm, I put it out there, and then it started to come in. And it was October 2020 then when I was able to quit the corporate day job, transition into this full time. And back when I first started, you know, the thought of doing that felt very scary. But it all just flowed. You know, you got to trust divine timing in this all. I got enough practice and experience working night, evenings, and 1 day a week for 2 years. And then I was like, okay, if I don't give this a proper go, then I'll never know. So I just took the leap, and the universe has caught me and supported me multiple times. And it's been very fulfilling and rewarding.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing that. My God, multiple times I was on the edge of tears there. And, you know, and I'm so sorry for your experience with Alice. And, you know, I'm sure she's looking down now at you, seeing what good you're doing in the world, and is incredibly proud of you. What an amazing story in that EFT really found you, I suppose, didn't it? And helped you manage that really tricky time. And because you had such proof of its effectiveness, I suppose that has really propelled you into the world that you are now in. The reason I wanted to do this episode, as I said to you earlier, was because I've had a number of different people contact me and say, well, I've seen you on Instagram doing some of your tapping videos. I want to know more about this tapping. How can it help me? So I think a really good place for us to kick this off really is if you could give me your definition of what is tapping.
Yeah, sure. In kind of posh speak, it is a combination of like cognitive and somatic therapy. In layman's terms, it's a way of releasing stress from your body. And in fact, you know, for me, it's the biggest brain hack that I've come across for switching off the fight, flight, freeze response. The cognitive part is the fact that you're talking about how you are feeling. So you're engaging the conscious brain. And then the somatic part is where you're actually physically touching on parts of your body that's sending signal back into the subconscious part of the brain. So the work combined these signals that go back into the subconscious switch off the amygdala, which governs your stress response, which pumps the cortisol and adrenaline through the body. And so the hack is the switching off of that response. And as you are tuning into how you feel, you're basically telling your body, it's okay to feel like that. There's nothing actually wrong. It's safe. Same way when we have pain. So pain is a signal to the body that something's wrong, isn't it? And most of us will then go and investigate that pain, or we'll support ourselves to look after and manage that pain. And we can actually switch off the pain response through tapping as well. So it's extremely powerful. It works in the subconscious. And I say this a lot, we can talk about stuff till the cows come home. We can talk about our problems for years and years and years. But that's all still, for me, in the conscious part of the brain, where we really let go and allow ourselves to move forward, where we rewrite the brain and the beliefs that we create. That all has to happen in the subconscious. So we've got to get into the subconscious. And this therapy for me is the quickest way to do that with active involvement. There's other therapies where you can relax and have, a Reiki session or a distant healing or whatever. That's all in the subconscious. Even acupuncture is purely in the subconscious, because you're not consciously thinking about anything when you're having acupuncture, really, are you? So it kind of, what I love, it combines the both, and there's speed and efficiency in the tapping. So you'll know this yourself. Within a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you are starting to feel a shift in your body. And that is the efficacy of it. And this, that is what attracts me, because when I was in the depths of my lowest points, I wanted something that worked and that was fast. I didn't want to go and talk about it for years with somebody. I wanted to get out of that place now. I was like, this is horrible. This needs to change. And that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. We can talk and talk and talk, as you say, and actually we can know why we're feeling like we're feeling, but actually it's not doing anything to actually help us in that moment to feel better. But this is so good, because it really does help us change in that moment. And I absolutely love it for that as well. I mean, there are lots of other therapies, like there was a study I read yesterday about cognitive behavioral therapy was being compared to tapping. And that just showed that working on an issue with CBT can take up to 6 months to solve or to improve. But with EFT, with tapping, it was more likely 6 weeks. I mean, that's obviously for quite a serious issue, but it's just a lot quicker than a lot of these other therapies out there.
Yeah, and it holds. So like, it's energy that we're shifting, it's energy that we're moving out of the body. So we only have to do these things once or twice in relation to a particular trauma or experience. And that, is also amazing, because with CBT, you have to kind of continually keep up practices and remember to do stuff. Whereas working with an EFT therapist on a particular trauma from childhood, 1 or 2 sessions later, that's all gone. And the energy's literally gone from your body. You don't have to do it again. And then the symptoms from that experience start to subside.
So I wonder, when talking about energy, I wonder if you could just explain how it works in terms of the meridian points, because we have this energy flowing through our body. And this is something which has been long kind of thought of through Chinese medicine. But I think a lot of people might get confused. What do you mean energies get stuck in our body? So I wonder whether you could just talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, well, going back, taking a step outwards, everything is energy. We are molecules, cells, nucleuses vibrating at different frequencies that create our physical density. The chair is made of the same thing as the computer, is the same thing as my body. We are all made of the same stuff, composed in different ways, and we're all vibrating at a different level. And when we have, I kind of look at emotion as just an energy, and a lot of people refer to it as energy in motion. We are meant to move through energy rather than hold energy. And what I think children come in fantastically in touch with, they don't feel well or they don't feel right, they cry. They then are able to verbalize as they get a bit older, where they get the tools, how they're feeling. They have a little tiff, they have a little cry, and then they get out, they release that energy, and then they move on with their day. You've seen kind of kids having tiffs. 2 seconds later, I'm looking at my sons. How are they kissing each other now after that 5 seconds ago, that riff? They just move on. And somewhere along the line, we are taught that it's natural to hold on to that energy. And as we hold on, and basically when I work with a lot of people, it comes from suppressed energy. So basically when a child has an emotion and they are not supported and allowed to express that emotion, that is when we start to hold it in. Most of the people that I work with have that issue, and as an adult, you feel it in your throat. You might, even as a teenager, you might have a lot of tonsillitis. I certainly did. So we have this kind of energy in our system that has nowhere to release, nowhere to go. We've no outlet for it. And it starts to stagnate and get stuck in our energy field. So we are not just our physical body. We have an aura and an energy field around us. And we collect energy in that field. And actually, we collect other people's energy in that field. And I'm sure you work with people as well who are really sensitive. We're all sensitive to vibration. We're sensitive, that's what our aura is. It's like this big jellyfish of sensors that are just sensing, is this a safe space? Is this not a safe space? Is this person going to be good for me? Are they not? We're picking up on energy all the time, whether we realize it or not. And the frequency of guilt, shame, fear, grief, etc., is just a heavier frequency than love, joy, peace, calm, etc. I call them the higher frequency energies. So what we're trying to do is, as we tap and connect in with this energy, we're sending the signal to the body that it's okay to release it. And I'd love someday that we can record this in some kind of magic camera where we're tapping away and we literally see the energy leave the body. I mean, people feel it. I burp like there's a demon in my stomach when I'm tapping. And when I'm tapping for clients, I'm burping their energy. Yawning is a great sign of releasing. Some people, their eyes just stream of tears, which is their way of releasing. Other people feel hot and cold. Most people say they feel lighter. They feel like the weight's been lifted. And so, I hope that helps explain the energy piece.
It is. And I think, I'm very in tune with all the, with the energy, but I think a lot of people aren't. But they are aware that when they feel heavy, when they feel stagnant, when something doesn't feel good, you really do feel it in your body. Whereas when you're enthusiastic about something and joyous, then you feel light and airy. And so we all are aware of it in some way, even if you're not aware of the energy as such, if that makes sense. So with tapping, so EFT, there are various ways that it can help us. And as you've already touched on, it can really help us with trauma and help us to release trauma, as it did for you. And that is something which I honestly just blows my mind every time, that you can go back into a memory and you can take that real sting out of that trauma. So I wonder, Sarah, if you could just tell us a little bit about how that works, or how you do that, particularly with your clients?
Yes. So as with you, I did an additional add-on to the training, which is matrix re-imprinting, which just takes this a little bit further. But I'll start with how you might just use it with tapping. So basically, in every given moment, we are either operating from memory or inspiration. And so memory, if you think about it, governs probably 90 to 95% of our every waking moment and thoughts. And as we grow up, we create our belief system, and every experience that we have goes into shaping that belief system. So every time something positive happens, we would create a positive belief or a positive decision about ourselves, the world, that experience, and vice versa. Then if something negative happens, we will infer something negative about that situation. Naturally, we are negatively biased for safety reasons. So we will pay more attention and put more weight on negative experiences and traumas to us because we then internalize that and subconsciously create a safety strategy that will then help us going forward. So, for example, a young child's in a car crash. Suddenly, out of the blue, the car has been crashed into, so therefore they could decide, I'm not safe, or they could make a belief that the world's not a safe place, and the strategy then would develop for them to be more vigilant, maybe with mom or dad, or if they're on a scooter or bike, they're going to maybe be a lot more cautious because they're fearful of something pending happening out of the blue as well. Maybe there's a belief to say, all right, I can't trust that I'm safe because out of the blue, something might happen. And over time, we think the amount of time that I say this to clients, like we think that we would grow out of that safety strategy, don't we? We think like, well, I don't need that anymore because like I'm grown up and I can cross the road fine. I don't need to hold mom's hand anymore. And you just think that naturally you'll grow out of these things. But in fact, we actually ingrain them more into our mind and our mindset so that we can get to a point where that becomes very, very limiting. That's where a belief becomes a limiting belief and it becomes controlling. So in a traumatic experience, we're holding on to not just the energy that we created on that day, so the shock, the pain, the grief, the fear, etc. We also have created a belief or a decision. So one of the key things with EFT is not just releasing the energy, but also finding out what belief was created and how we can convince the younger version of ourselves to release and let go of that belief. And then we can rewrite that belief, and a whole host of different opportunities are available to you. Our mindset is like a false prison. It's like it works for us to a degree and to a point, and then it starts to hold us back from doing the things that we really want, especially the soul-led things, the things that our heart is yearning for. That's where the mind and the ego and the subconscious is being controlled by this mindset. So with EFT, there's techniques where we can go back to an event. We can talk through the event that happened and release all of the energy that was created at that time, all the different aspects of energies. Each event that we have in our lives, we can have multiple different energies created in that moment. It's like the layers of the onion. They're hidden beneath each other. And we can find out what that belief was and work towards releasing that belief. Then we have matrix re-imprinting, which I feel is a little bit more efficient and quicker, where you actually go back into the memory and you talk to your former self. And you imagine tapping on your former self. So you tap on yourself in the real world, sitting with your therapist, and you're also imagining tapping on your former self, and you're communicating directly with your former self in that event and in that moment. And that's where I feel like a lot more insight comes, because they're able to tell you what those layers of energy were, and the beliefs. And also you could then do things like, well, when have you felt like that before? And you'll suddenly be recalling a memory that you maybe haven't thought of in 10, 15, 20 years. And that's a clue as well. So they kind of every memory is a clue to the creation point, the starting point of that belief. So, for example, the other day, I had a young 18-year-old client. This 18-year-old client has a belief that, or fear that she's going to be abandoned. And it transpires that she was born with a cord around her neck. And so we were able to go back. I took her back to imagine connecting with her baby self in the NICU, who was, because obviously she was separated from mum to get the support she needed. And we asked her, what was the belief that this little baby created? And the belief was, I'm alone. So what I think we don't realize is that, as conscious beings, we can subconsciously create these things from very, very early, including in utero, so our birth experience is actually really important in how we view the world thereafter. And, we talked to her baby self. We brought in beautiful provisions to her. We brought in angels, and we brought in a photograph of her family to stick in the NICU so she could know that she survived, that she's okay, that she's got a family, she's loved. And just felt such relief afterwards, because another thing as well is that before the age of 3, we aren't able to connect a feeling to an image. We just aren't able to do that mentally. So all kind of memories pre-3, especially with that involves separation, are just general floating anxiety. And that's what she came to me with, just anxiety at a high level. So when you look at it and look at all the layers, there's always an event that has created a belief that is shaping the current feeling.
Yeah. When I did my training, my matrix re-imprinting training, I am quite cynical about a lot of things. So when something works, it really does blow my mind. And in my training, while someone was practicing matrix re-imprinting on me, I went back to in utero, so in my mother's uterus. And it was the most crazy, bizarre experience. But it made so much sense to me how the belief I had formed at that point in my life, that experience, had informed so much, such a big part of my life. And it was it was actually connected bizarrely to blushing. So we started with trying to cure blushing. So it was something which I used to do massively as a child. And then I kind of got a handle on it, and it just shows up very, very occasionally for me now. Well, do you know what? Since that session, it's never ever happened since. But it was about the way I came out into the world, and it was perhaps me trying a protective mechanism, the blushing. Anyway, it blew my mind. But the fact that my memory went back through my subconscious to that point in time. So yeah, it's really, really amazing. So treating trauma is a big part of what you do, what I do. But we were talking before we pressed record that actually EFT has lots and lots and lots of other benefits, particularly when it comes to reducing stress, which we know is such a big cause for so many illnesses, but also is a huge aggravator during perimenopause and menopause. And we were talking, there's a study which was done in 2020, which proved that using EFT reduces cortisol in the body by up to 43%, which is absolutely huge. So I was saying to you that I use tapping a lot with my clients, more as a way of managing stressful situations, managing anxiety, managing irritabilities, managing symptoms, because it is so powerful. So I wonder, Sarah, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what can someone do in the moment when they're feeling like, really stressful.
Sure. I think there's actually two things to play here. One, I think the symptoms of menopause are more difficult if you have had a lot of prior stresses, traumas, etc., in your system and in your physical memory, like the cell memory, you'll probably be more prone to stress if you have had a lot of stressful events in your life prior. The cortisol and adrenaline in your body might be running at a much higher level than someone who hasn't had a lot of stresses. Like naturally, we are meant to have, peaks and troughs of cortisol and adrenaline. And some people have a lot of peaks, more peaks than troughs. So firstly, I think if you're approaching the perimenopause and into the menopause and postmenopause, like actually doing some work on the previous traumas and experiences, and also the mindset, because the beliefs that you're running are also going to impact how you are feeling during this stage of life. Well, I believe. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there is some study out there somewhere that it does show that if you have experienced trauma in your life, you are more susceptible to menopause symptoms, or your symptoms are going to be worse. And yes, I mean, beliefs are everything. If you have various limiting beliefs as you go into this stage of life, it's going to probably hold you back in terms of how you're going to approach menopause, how you're going to accept your new postmenopausal self, how you're going to manage your menopause and your symptoms. So yeah, I totally agree.
Exactly. Like if your confidence is really poor and self-belief is really poor, and you're not prioritizing yourself, you're not loving yourself fully, then you're not going to be giving yourself the best chance of supporting yourself during this phase. And so for me, there is there is potential for an improvement of your day-to-day by doing some of that more deeper trauma work and looking at the beliefs you're running and supporting yourself and releasing the past, basically. Also, as we know, there's a very physical shift and change in hormones that are causing these specific symptoms, the anxiety, depression, insomnia, hot flushes, whatever. The list is pretty extensive, I believe. So there's a real reason for that. And often when people don't know early enough that they're going through this, they're very critical of themselves. I'm sure you've seen this a lot. Is actually they're chastising themselves for feeling a certain way, when actually it's a hormonal change, and not because they're not good enough or because they can't cope or because they haven't got enough resources in place, etc. So I think also having supports through that kind of shift and change on view of yourself, that actually it's okay to take a hormone supplement if I feel I need a hormone supplement, or it's okay to eat extra, natural estrogen in my diet because I'm lacking it in the moment. Like we could probably go a lot easier on ourselves if A, we had the knowledge and understanding, and B, the compassion and the belief in the mindset that we are worthy of this level of support during this time. And that, I think, that plus the EFT can step in there. EFT can support with that self-belief, that, ability, getting rid of guilt and shame and blame and the things that are kind of keeping you frozen and holding back from really allowing yourself to be supported through it. And then there's the EFT of the actual symptoms itself, so managing the insomnia. EFT reduces your stress, which means you can get to sleep easier and sleep longer. EFT reduces anxiety, it reduces depression, and reduces the cortisol and the adrenaline. So if you're running all of that, overall, I think your symptoms are going to be easier to manage. And also you become more resilient. The more you tap, the more resilient you are. And you have a tool that you can use in the moment, given any of the symptom situations, to help you reduce what is coming up for you in that time. So that itself is really empowering. And, I think, I'm sure you deal with this too and see it. It's like, actually, empowerment during this stage of your life is probably one of the the fundamentals that can really support you, so you've got the awareness, you've got the prioritization of self, you've got the self-belief and confidence, and you've got tools to help you through it.
Yeah. I use EFT a lot at the moment because I have 3 teenagers in my house, and 3 teenagers can really sometimes make me feel really angsty. And it's brilliant to do alongside meditation as well, because that meditation helps you become aware of what you might be about to say. So what I generally do then is take myself away into another room. I might turn my back. I will do a couple of rounds of tapping to take that real heat out of that moment, so that I can then return and manage the situation in a much, much calmer way, and not say something which I might regret and which is going to flare the situation up. And that, I think, it can be, for a lot of people, can be so useful. But obviously also, as you mentioned, anxiety, which I know is such a big problem for so many women going through perimenopause. It's one of those symptoms which can really kind of creep up on you. And using EFT, again, in the moment, can really help to calm you down, to make you just feel to stop it from escalating into something much, much, much bigger. So I kind of can almost hear people saying, so what do I do? What do I do? How can I do this? Well, I know that, so both Sarah and I particularly Sarah, on our Instagrams have us demonstrating rounds of tapping. But maybe just briefly, Sarah, you could just explain, what do we do in a round of tapping? How does it work?
Okay. So first of all, you just tune into what you're feeling. Really, part of this is acknowledgement that I'm feeling ragey because the bins haven't been taken out, some of the things that, previously were trivial now are really difficult. So you tune into where that is in your body. Now, some people who, aren't very connected to the body might feel that in the whole body, or they might not be sure where that is, or it could be very clearly in the throat, stuck in the throat or in the chest or in the stomach. So if you have an idea of where it is, it's really handy. And then you can start including that into the beginning of the tapping. So you use what we do at the beginning is do a setup statement, which is just summarizing how you're feeling, but we top and tail it with certain phrases. So we say, even though, and this is tapping on the side of your hand, the baby finger side of the hand, even though I'm feeling so ragey in my throat because the bins haven't been taken out, I choose, now these are the words I use, to forgive, love, and accept myself anyway. And I've added forgiveness in there because, and I probably could fit quite well for the menopausal stuff, it's like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault I feel ragey right now, or it's not my fault I'm struggling to sleep. So adding in the forgiveness piece is quite a nice element of compassion.
I like that.
Do that. Yeah. You do that on the side of the hand, and you only need to do that once. If you're doing a group session, you do that 3 times. And then you start on the top of the head. So this is the sequence, like with the crown of the head. And you just start by focusing on the core issue, which is the rage in my throat. So there's maybe this red rage in my throat. You move to the start of the eyebrow, this red rage, side of the eye, all this rage in my throat, under the eye, because the bins haven't been taken out, under the nose. I asked for the bins to be taken out, on the chin. Can no one do the bins? Then the collarbone. So underneath the collarbone, it's K27, if anyone wants to look that up as an acupuncture point. Can no one help me in this house? So you allow yourself to feel the rage.
Yeah, it's just saying the it's saying the statements that are going around in your head.
Yeah.
But you're just saying them out loud.
Exactly. Allowing yourself to connect to what you're feeling. Under the arm where the bra strap might be, if someone was wearing a bra strap. And then across the wrist, all this rage in my throat. And then you squeeze either side of the fingernail bed. So the thumb, so you can tap or squeeze. Lately, I've started to just squeeze and hold rather than tap. But and then you just continue on. You're tuning into how you're feeling. You're connecting to that energy. You're expressing why I'm feeling that ragey. And then you get to a place as you tap. You can say you do 2 or 3 rounds. Part of that is deciding to let it go. It's just saying, I choose now to let go of all this rage. Maybe they'll put the bins out later. Maybe it isn't such a big deal. Maybe they have a lot going on. You kind of get to look at perspective a little bit. Is there other reasons why certain things are happening? You know, can you connect it into yourself? Maybe this is just how I feel today. That's okay. You know, give yourself compassion, forgiveness, and allow yourself to let it go. And, you know, so I kind of teach, you have to start tapping on how negative you're feeling. So you've got to tune into the negative. Otherwise it's glossy. You're polishing something. You're not going in doing the deep clean. And then you can move to more neutral statements, which is the way you could question, like, why am I feeling like this today? Is there anything else going on? Maybe there's something else going on for that other person, etc. And then I choose now to let it go, choosing to let go of all this rage. And then just at the end, you could even say, you know, oh, I love myself. You know, this is a tough time for me. I give myself all the compassion I need. And then you're done. 3 minutes.
And what I love is when you notice the feeling wherever it is in your body, whether it's in your throat, whether it's in your chest, you'll notice as you're tapping that feeling moves around. It changes shape, it changes color. It's amazing. And eventually it will sort of just slowly dissipate.
Yeah.
And it does feel like magic. And the other thing you can do before you start a round, if you want to sort of really measure how much your emotion has changed, is you can give it a score out of 10. So at the beginning, you can go, if you're a 10 out of 10, right, all this rage. And as you go through the rounds of tapping, at the end of it, go through maybe, say, 3 rounds, you can then score it again out of 10. And I guarantee that number will have reduced quite significantly.
Yeah. And, you know, it's really good when you first start tapping to do the scoring. And then I found over time, it was like, I just started to feel when I released. So basically I yawn. Every time I get to that point where I say, I choose to let go now, I would literally have a yawn or a burp or something. And that was like, oh, okay, I've let go now. That was like my marker. And then I'd almost stop after that because I'm like, oh, I know I've let go. I feel better. Yeah. Like for me, I just tap until I feel better. And sometimes that takes a bit longer than other times. And if I have the time, I'll keep going. But sometimes dropping from a 10 to an 8 is really significant and will give you some relief. You know, you don't have to get from 10 to a 0. If you've only got 2 minutes and you're in the heat of the moment, dropping a couple of levels, letting go of some of this energy will be perfect for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So why, Sarah, if this is so effective, why is it not readily available? Why is it not seen as something which, you know, doctors use, which is much more widely out there? Let's talk about that a little bit.
So I had Dr. Peter Stapleton, who is the leading researcher for EFT, on my podcast last season. And she said that EMDR took 20 years to get from a conceptual therapy into something approved by the, I think, the American Physician Association. And once that got approved, it then became mainstream and it was started to get funded by insurers, and the hospitals were using it and all sorts of things. We are at year 19 for EFT. So that is a really, really exciting time. She said that she's working on a research paper, pulling together all the proof to get it approved as a mainstream therapy for that association. And, that's going to take another probably couple of years to pull this all together. There's 100 separate research studies now globally, and other countries such as Iran and Korea are now researching EFT quite heavily. So one I wanted to mention is a study from 2020 in Iran that looked at how effective EFT was to support postmenopausal women with depression. And there was 88 women involved. 44 went into an EFT group. They were told how to do tapping, and they were told to tap every day for 8 weeks. Then the control group were given fake tapping points. So they weren't tapping on the right points, and they had to do the same. And the results were that the depression for the EFT group dropped from 56.8% down to 9.35%.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the control group, I think, they dropped to 20 or 25%.
Okay.
So their recommendation is that mainstream clinics need to be using EFT to support menopausal women, which is amazing.
Which I think is happening more in Australia now, isn't it? They're streets ahead of us.
Australia's like its own microclimate of tapping, because Dr. Peter said in that podcast with me, she described kind of her whole journey with it, and she had basically free reign in her research years in the university that she was in. She's a PhD in psychology, and she was specializing in weight loss. And she came across EFT, put it into a trial on weight loss, had amazing, significant results. And then basically her college dean just said, you can do whatever research you want. So she has probably pushed the research piece in Australia at the same time is allowing EFT to become more popular. So she was on TVs talking about it. This was years ago. Thousands of people signing up to be in her research programs, celebrities now tapping, nurses tapping, midwives tapping, GPs tapping. It's like commonplace. I'm not sure if it's covered under the insurance down there yet, but I think it's exciting time, especially for us, practitioners, because it's going to become much more mainstream, and there's going to be a need for a lot of practitioners. Once this becomes covered by insurance, the NHS is going to invest in it. Hopefully, there are going to be people that are going to, step into that space and support people on the front line. This, if we catch people soon enough, like this 18-year-old I had the other day, I was like, I work with women in their 40s and 50s with exactly the same symptoms and beliefs that you are running now. I don't want to see you in 25 years' time. I want you to decide now that this is it, that you are not going to continue living a life with this belief and with these anxiety symptoms. Getting in early, supporting people after trauma, is going to have a significant impact on the NHS, massive, because illness is caused by stress. Stress is caused by trauma and our beliefs about what happened, how we interpreted that event. And the energy psychology world is changing, and it's really exciting. And I can't wait to see how it evolves over the next 5 to 10 years.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because medicine as we know it is all generally about the body. Then you have psychology, which is all about the mind. But actually, as we're now learning, it's all, we are mind and body and soul. And we need to be looking at the whole person. And something like EFT really does help you do both of those. Sarah, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you today. Thank you so much for joining me. If anybody would love to find out more about you, so you have a membership group, people can come and work with you one-to-one, how can they come and find you?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I mean, I love chatting about this. We could go on for days.
Absolutely.
Yeah, probably best to call it. Yeah, so you can find me at tappingformums.com. Now, I don't just work with mums. I work with sometimes the husbands of the mums, the children of the mums, non-mums, women that don't want to become mums. I have been working with them all, but it's not to alienate, but it's more that I've specialized with mums. That's it. I'm trying to use my story and my experience of motherhood to help others. So that's kind of where that came from. And you can also find me on Instagram at Sarah_Tobin, Tobin.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. And I really do recommend you all to go and have a look at Sarah's Instagram, particularly for some of her tapping videos, because they are really brilliant, really, really brilliant.
Oh, I've got a few videos on YouTube as well, actually.
Oh, great.
Yes,
okay.
So
yes.
Just search Tapping for Mums on YouTube.
Yeah. And that will show you exactly and where the tapping points are. And it really isn't difficult. You can pick it up very, very quickly. And actually, I've got some on my Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been great. And speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Polly.
You will, as always, find all of those details in the show notes. Thank you so, so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and it really does mean the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you could, wherever you listen to your podcasts, rate, review and subscribe, because it helps get this podcast out there more so more people can listen to it. Also, just a reminder, if you are feeling like you could really do with some support navigating your own perimenopause, then I would absolutely love for you to get in touch with me. I have various offers out there at the moment. So firstly, you could just come and have a menopause support session with me. This is a one-to-one session. It's 90 minutes. It is £175. And in this session, you will get super clear on some of the actions you can take to really take control of perimenopause rather than letting it control you. And actually, some of this could involve learning some tapping techniques and learning how to use it, as well as knowing what supplements to take, as well as a whole range of different techniques which are absolutely suitable for you and which are easy to fit into your life. If you feel like you need some longer term support, some real transformation, I offer a 12-week midlife transformation program, and these sessions are I just love them so much, because I can take someone from a place where they are really struggling to someone who is thriving. And it is just so wonderful to see. In these sessions, what you get, not only do you get the support, you get that all important accountability. And for some people, this is super, super important. And there's no shame in it. It's just the way we're wired. And it can take a lot for us to wire in any sort of behavior change. We also can really uncover any deep-rooted beliefs which might be holding you back. We've all got them, and we can release those and let them go so that you can really flourish and thrive into your best self. That is all for this week. I would absolutely love to know your thoughts on this episode. Please do feel free to come over to Instagram and follow me if you're not already. I'm at Polly Warren Coaching, or you can come and find me on my website, pollywarren.com. Have a wonderful week, take care, and I will speak to you next week. Bye.